Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 39. Before we get into the video, I think I should tell you that I am seriously considering to end the series with the next outing. I have two reasons. Reaching 40 would be a nice round number, and I am getting to the point where I really can't think of anything big to do, that wouldn't just be a long grind to accomplish. Sure, we could get rid of all the dark fog in the cluster, we could build shield emitters on every single planet, but that would get boring real fast. And at this point, we are just expanding mindlessly, moving our manufacturing apparatus to other planets. So this just might be the penultimate episode, but hey, at least it opens the gate to other series to come in. Before we get started, I would love it if you subscribe to the channel, and clicking the like button will let me know that this video was worth making. If you want to help me make a living off this one day, please consider becoming a channel member, where you will get an early access to the videos as I make them, and for a one-time donation, you can find a link to my Ko-fi page in the description. But enough talking, let's get into it. So, we will do a bit of normal work in this episode, and the next one would be a bit of a long-form montage of things happening around the cluster. It would basically be a video made up entirely of clips like the ones we have at the start and end of each episode, with some musical accompaniment, maybe a tiny bit of babbling from me at the start to set the stage. If you remember, the end goal I set for this series was to finish building the sphere. And we are getting real close now, but I don't think I can really add anything new in terms of actual gameplay. Anyways, we ended the last video by arriving in the Osiris system, ready to start placing those standalone shield emitter stations. Well, I did that off camera, and now we are ready to start placing factories on those planets, now that they are protected from any dark fog landings. The most obvious choice for the next factory we can place is of course a titanium glass center. It is one of the prerequisites of the quantum chips, so that's what we will deal with today. We had two real options for where to place it. Either in the Mizar, or the Osiris system, and due to its proximity, I went with Osiris. By the way, I did not forget about the original goal we started this series for. I still plan on claiming the first spot on the leaderboard for this particular seed, but I will just do it off camera, and only release the occasional music videos to keep everyone updated on the progress. Also, did anyone else see the second big update for Captain of Industry? It looks really promising, and I would love to get back into it in the near future. But I also want to play Vintage Story, and Workers and Resources are long overdue for a comeback. I just don't know where to squeeze it in, so it might need to wait a little bit, but dear me, those new things do look really interesting. Anyways, as it turns out, we already had a dedicated planet in the Osiris system for titanium alloys. I knew we had a place for these somewhere, I just didn't remember that it was here. At least we could name the planet for it. This one will be perfect for the glass. It only has the shields set up, otherwise it's a completely empty place, ready for exploitation. The power will be a bit of an interesting proposition though. If you look at our research, you'll see that it's at a standstill. Now that all the antimatter goes to the fuel cells, it will take a long time before we can start making universal matrices again. We have a tower to fill up with the fuel rods, and that will take a while. So, if we decide to use microsuns for powering this place, that will only lengthen the technological drought. Sure, as the sphere grows, the antimatter production will also increase, but if we start using it in large numbers now, it will only make things worse. Which leaves fusion as the only real alternative. The thing with those is that we already used most of the reactors for the shield emitters. There isn't much left, and it would take some effort to make more. And good thing this is the penultimate episode, so you don't have to worry about that. It will all be up to me to sort out. Well, we all know how this goes. Let me quickly blitz through this construction. We had a bit of a shortage of buildings, so I had to make a quick hop back to Juno to restock. And we're back. I did notice while building that only the titanium managed to trickle down to that planet, so we had to investigate the other components. I started with the glass, which was of course being made on Vulcan. We only had a single tower making that stuff, and now that it was in high demand, we needed a couple more to shore up the production shortfall. Good thing we have a relatively good supply of stone from Juno. Let's hope that adding all this extra production will hasten the strip mining of our home planet. We still have quite a lot of resource deposits waiting to be emptied out. Okay, hopefully that will be enough to deal with the glass throughput. The next thing we need to deal with is water, another component not making it to the new production planet. The current pump system is simply not enough. Maybe if we doubled it up it could cope with the demand. With a bit of careful use of the foundations, we can create a shoreline that could fit the pumps in a neat row, similar to the ones we already have. Damn. We are one short, thanks to the way the foundations change the terrain. Well, not much we can do about that. There is no take seas backsies with this sort of thing, unfortunately. We had the previous batch of pumps feed into a single line in groups of 10. Now that we are getting close to grinding the vein utilization technology, maybe we should do 5 per line. As that research progresses, the speed of the extraction will go up drastically, saturating the belts quite fast. Time to power up the pumps, and sort out this shortage, at least for the time being. We might as well power up the tower too. Giving it its own set of logistics vessels will surely boost the throughput that will be needed with the increased production of water. Taking a quick look at the progress of the sphere construction, it is obvious that we need new ray receivers. Which is great news. It means the construction is progressing at a rapid rate, and we are increasing the antimatter production in a similar fashion as well. We are starting to run out of room around the North Pole at a rapid rate. We are getting to the point where we need to start thinking about setting up similar outposts on the other planets in the system. Well, I was getting a bit weary of doing this so many times at this point, and I didn't really feel like adding the extra belt splitters to do all the new receivers. Maybe I will just add a small inserter-based branching a bit later when I play on my own, but for now, about a third of these sphere harvesters will have to make do without the graviton lenses. And I think this is as far as we will take this particular ray receiver farm. Once I sort out the last layer with the lenses, we will likely blueprint it, and start stamping down similar farms at the poles of the other planets. Now that we don't have to worry about the dark fog in the system, we can get rid of the old defensive structures, and replace them with the receivers. The next task I decided to tackle was the removal of a couple obsolete towers on Juno. That mostly just meant the 2 electric motor factories. There was still some leftover components in the assemblers though, so we still had to keep the central towers around to fully get rid of it all. Well, these were mostly very low-level stuff, like gears and magnetic coils, but since we were not in a hurry, and we had things set up to do the job, I decided not to delete those resources, and just feed them back into the logistics network. I also got started on emptying out one of the titanium glass towers. Not all of them. I wanted to make sure the new setups were doing their job before I fully committed to them. And while I was tracking down the empty towers, I also checked on the stocks in the others, and I was happy to see things being in a good place, for the most part anyways. All in all, I am quite happy with this ray receiver farm. It could be a bit more dense in some of the layers, but it is making a decent use of the space for the most part. Well, we've been expanding the rocket launching capacity quite a bit lately, but we haven't really done anything for the solar sails. They are just as important in the sphere construction effort, so maybe we should do a revisit. First, I wanted to check just how many new rail guns we would need to build a 4th layers on the South Pole. So, I cleared out the wind turbines to make some room, and then used one of the launchers to check. Well, it would be about 30, given that we could just about reach the other end of the circle with the 15 placement limit. Just to be on the safe side, I went ahead and started building 40 of them. Also, you see me struggling to place power poles. It's been a constant annoyance with this place, which is why I will decide to completely rebuild the whole thing when I get back from the mall. And this is where I decided to just rebuild it all. There was simply no room to place the power poles, let alone the substations, so we needed a bit more of a gap between the layers. Otherwise we cannot power all of them. We will also stop the railguns from sharing belts. It would only cause inevitable conflicts between the inserters, so giving every layer their own personal belts will help with that. To place the next layer, we will go one tile further out, instead of going for the first position that gives us a valid placement. That should be enough extra room for the power poles. Well, the third layer will have an odd number of launchers. That will mess with the even distribution of the orbital targeting, but that's a small price to pay for an otherwise proper construction layout. I think we even managed to make the whole thing a bit more dense than the old one. If you remember, we needed 30 new railguns to fill out the last layer, but I made 40 to be on the safe side. That would have left us with 10 extra. But now we have only 5 left over. We managed to squeeze in 5 more somewhere along the line. As for the whole purpose of this exercise, placing the power poles is a bit hit and miss, but it is a lot better than it was before, so I consider this rebuilding a success. And we didn't even need to involve any substations to get full coverage. I am a lot happier with this setup than I was with the old one. Well, setting the targeting for the second orbit will have to be done manually with the setting copy function. We cannot set the gap between the buildings large enough to do it with the drag method. As I've said, the third layer has an uneven number of rail guns, so we ended up with one more doing the second orbit. But hey, it does a better job than the old setup. We somehow managed to cram 5 more launchers in there, and the power distribution is a bit more organized than before. To check how much of an improvement we made, we can check the graphs. Wow! That looks like twice as many solar sails being put into orbit than before. I would say we did a rather piffing job. Anyways, this puts an end to this penultimate episode of the series. Sadly, this also means that I cannot really say what we will be doing in the next one. I will keep working on the overall distribution of materials to keep the factory rolling along, but the final 40th episode will be all about the visuals. We will not be building, it will just be a music video, showing of all the planets we have managed to set up in this playthrough, culminating in the completion of the sphere. Well, it should be more or less obvious what the overall design is by now, but it will be a better view once the footage is sped up. It's really hard to show it off properly when the rings are rotating so slowly. But hey, we did rather good, did we not? There is always room for improvement, but I'm happy with the end result. Anyways, if you haven't done it already, I would love it if you subscribe to the channel, and clicking the like button will also help letting me know that the video was worth making. If you would like to help me make a living off this one day, please consider becoming a channel member, where you will get an early access to the videos as I make them. And if you want to give a one-time donation, you can find a link to my Ko-fi page in the description. Thank you for your support, and I will see you in the next one.